Just when I thought that fate was unkind.
Well, it's
Yeah.
great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Yeah, you too, Joe. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into the album and your world of music. So thank you so much for taking a minute out. I mean, it's a big deal. It's your debut. I really ought to tell you. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So let's begin our journey with 6 years ago, this pandemic was raging, changing our lives, doing so much to the music community. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you approach life and creation?
Wow, that's a huge question. So during the pandemic, I was in grad school. I was
Yeah.
finishing up my grad degree. And so honestly, I was just chucking away. I was really thankful that we were able to go back in person pretty quickly. It was definitely not like normal school. You know, I was singing in a vocal jazz ensemble. We all had those big singer masks on, if you know what
Yeah.
those look like, the duck bills. And we
Yeah.
had to stand in boxes 10 feet apart. And we did concerts to no audience, live stream only concerts with the duckbill mask on. And so it was definitely its own journey, but I still being able to make music in person with people at that time, I think was crucial. So I was still able to give a recital at that time. And honestly, I think I had just a few peers and professors that really helped me through that time. My husband is also a musician, and so the two of us were just sequestered in our apartment together, and we made some music together outside of, you know, school and research and whatnot. And that really helped me stay creative and have fun. And we would just record videos together, whether it was jazz tunes on our own instruments, or sometimes we'd get, you know, grab the ukulele and just sing little songs together. And it really helped me stay joyful and creative. We ended up kind of writing some songs together outside of our typical genre, so to speak. We're both jazz musicians. So all of that stuff really helped. And then, of course, when all of our classes and lessons went virtual, I was taking composition lessons with John DeVersa at the time,
Yeah.
who's the head of the program at Frost in Miami. And he basically turned our composition class into a like artist development class.
Yeah.
And so he prompted me to write based on my feelings about the pandemic and everything going on in the United States at the time, and the turmoil in the political climate. And so that really kept me open. He would give me assignments like go lay on the floor in your bathroom and freely improvise for 10 minutes and record it. And all those things, whether it was making music with my husband or my peers or some really cool assignments from those professors, really helped me stay musical instead of shutting down
Yeah,
at that
that's
time.
interesting. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit at your debut. I really ought to tell you, talk to me a little bit about what your vision was. It's a big deal whenever you release
Yeah.
anything debut wise. What was the vision?
Absolutely. So I think I was hindered from making my first album for a long time because you know, as a young jazz up and coming jazz musician, around my peers, I felt this pressure to do something new and cutting edge, and what am I going to do to break the mold as a young artist? And I think that kind of hindered me wanting to be creative and release a project. Whereas when I shifted that frame of thought to, well, what do I like to listen to? Like, what brings me joy to listen to? I thought about my favorite singer recordings. As one of my favorite albums is Sarah Vaughan, How Long Has This Been Going On, with Oscar Peterson and Ray Brown, and just the joyful swinging of that record. And so then that kind of opened me up to, what do I want to release? And so I wanted to create something that was overall just a joyful listen. So there's a few of my favorite standards, lots of just fun swinging, and I brought together some musicians along with Tony Guerrero, who produced the album. He helped bring in some other musicians, and all of these musicians are just lovely, authentic, joyful people and great collaborators. And so we created some fun swinging stuff. And then I also wanted to include a few more melancholy, emotional tunes as well. There's a few of my favorite ballads. There's a Joni Mitchell tune on there. And so I just wanted to make something that was fun and engaging and vulnerable at times. I chose to do mostly jazz standards, just with the thought of it being a debut and being an unknown artist, just so being able to connect to listeners in a way, oh, there's some songs that you recognize, as well as a few lesser known tunes and an original tune of mine to kind of wrap the whole thing up.
So, what are you hoping the listener gets from this big debut?
I'm hoping that they get a sense, well, first of all, just a sense of joy and enjoyment. I mean, the first thing with some of these swing tunes are just, I think, are just fun to listen to. And I think in a very challenging and confusing world we live in right now, sometimes that can be very much exactly what, at least what I need as a music listener and what I gravitate towards as a music listener. And so I hope that they can feel that authentic joy. I hope it gives a listener some emotional context for things that they might be feeling. There's some songs about some deeper stuff, some songs about heartbreak, and some songs about processing life. And I just hope that they're able to connect with those lyrics and then the way that they're delivered.
So, the album actually comes out tomorrow, and there's something about having it tangibly in your hands and knowing it's happening. What's going to happen tomorrow? Lots of confetti, lots of champagne. What are you doing?
Well, tonight the release party show is tonight.
Oh, okay. There
So
you go.
yeah, so we're doing a show in Newport Beach, California at Campus Jacks. It's all the folks who played on the records. So tonight is the big like live release party debut. And then funny enough, tomorrow I've got a rehearsal for another show. So didn't
Okay.
even give myself a moment. We're going right into the
Uh-huh.
next thing. So but tonight's the big live celebration.
Okay, so how did this journey begin for you? You're very talented. You got a lot going on. You're a vocalist, composer, arranger. There's all these things happening. How did this journey into the music begin? How did jazz become your focal?
Yeah, so it kind of went very backwards for me. My mom's a jazz musician. She's a
Okay.
saxophone player, and so she is a music teacher. And so growing up, the first thing she did was stick me in piano lessons. And from a very young age, she made it clear that this is part of your education, just like school. And the rule was that I had to continue in piano lessons until I was 16 years old. She didn't tell me that I needed to put any amount of effort into it. That was my prerogative. She was like, you can engage with this as much as you want, but you're going to take these piano lessons until you are from age 4 to 16. And then from there, you can decide if you want to continue and stick with it. That was her rule. You do it just like math, science, English, all that other stuff. And so I started piano at a young age. And I always really liked to sing. And singing kind of ended up being my fun thing that I did outside of school. So as I got older, when I was in middle school, I did band. I played orchestral percussion. So I was in middle school all the way through high school. I did marching band, percussion ensemble. I did like four mallet marimba and like orchestral snare drum stuff. And then I also played piano in the jazz band. My mom was my high school band teacher. Both my
Okay.
mom and my stepdad were. So we were together all the time at marching band shows and whatever. So I was deep into the band world, but I always liked to sing. And that was kind of my thing that I did that brought me joy. It was the thing I didn't have to practice for school or. And so when I was younger, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in college. I didn't know that I wanted to pursue being a percussionist. It was never something I saw myself doing after high school. And so, but I played piano in the jazz band and I took lessons when I was in high school with Matt Harris, who used to be the head of the jazz program at Cal State Northridge, kind of local to where I grew up. And so I got really into jazz music around age 14 or 15 or so. And I was never really interested in it before. My mom always tried to expose me to it. She would bring me to concerts and it would go over my head. She would just try to drop little seeds and it never really stuck. And then I started taking piano lessons and going to summer camps and whatnot. And by the time I was a teenager, I was really interested in it. But I still never really sang jazz. I did musical theater shows and I took some lessons. And um, so then later on in high school is when I started learning lyrics standards and singing them. And Matt really encouraged me to do that in my piano lessons. And then I also had some other experiences, all through the California music education realm, growing up with music teachers. And so I ended up doing the all-state jazz choir, and that was my first like singing experience with other jazz musicians and a jazz vocal teacher. And that I left that experience going, that was so much fun. I want to do that forever. that was amazing. And so when I applied to school, I applied some places as a piano major and some places as a voice major, and I ended up going to Miami for voice. So I ended up studying jazz voice in college, despite the fact that my whole journey was this instrumental band heavy thing. So I kind of almost fell into it backwards in a way.
So, what was the first live jazz show you saw that blew you away?
Wow. Great question. So this is a great memory, and I don't know that it blew me away at the time. Like I was too young to really get it. But when I was about 8 years old, my mom and two of our family friends took me to see the singer Barbara Morrison sing with John Clayton and Gerald, a young Gerald Clayton at the time,
Yeah.
and she was singing with them. And to be honest with you, I don't remember a lot of the music, but what I do remember was during the intermission, my mom took me to go because Barbara was out in the lobby signing CDs, and we approached her, and she said she bent down to my level and said, "Are you a young jazz fan?" And again, at the time, jazz really went over my head, but I knew it was something that my mom enjoyed and she'd been exposing me to. So, Barbara looked at me, "Are you a young jazz fan?" And I said, "Yes." And then Barbara autographed the CD and refused to let my mom pay for it.
Wow.
She handed it to my mom and said, "No, this is for you too." And now I've listened to that CD since, and I really love it. And I actually ended up before Barbara passed, my husband played a gig with her, and I got to see her sing live. She was much older, and I got to see her sing and tell her, "Hey, when I was 8 years old, you gave me this CD." And so it kind of came full circle. And so that's a really important memory in my head, even though I barely remember the music that happened that night because I was so young. But
Yeah.
that interaction really stuck with me, and like the giving nature of jazz and jazz singers and jazz musicians, and that was something that kind of stuck in my brain for a long time.
That's wonderful. So let me ask you this. You obviously had this dream of getting into the world of jazz and being a musician. What's been the difference between this idea of what you thought it would be like to be a professional
Mm.
musician and actually living the life of being one?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I will say when I was in school, I did a lot of teaching. It's something that came very natural to me. And as you know, my in my upbringing, I have a lot of educators in my family, even outside of my parents. And so it's something that came naturally to me. And now I still teach. I teach college vocal jazz now, and that's my day gig. And so I think when I was younger, I had everybody, you think that there's one path to be a professional jazz musician, right? You go to New York, you like climb the ranks in the New York jazz scene, and you become this well-known musician. And so, but as I went on through school, and not everybody, goes the academia route to do music, right? But that's just the route that I chose. But as I was going through that journey, I realized that everybody's thing can look different, right? There's some people who make their entire living as a performing musician. There are others who do um, session work and teaching and kind of piecemeal their career together. And so when I was younger, I really thought that there was only one way to do something. And I kind of saw myself as a jack of all trades. I was interested in all this stuff. I love teaching. I love choir. I love jazz. And I used to think that was a weakness. Like, oh, I'm not focused on one path. But I've found so far since really beginning my career that it's actually been the opposite. I've had some really cool opportunities through all different things outside of just a solo jazz singing career. I've really enjoy my teaching career. I love it feels very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's very fulfilling, and I really enjoy working with those students. I get to sing in some choral ensembles, and that actually a couple of years ago our ensemble won a Grammy. We got to go to the Grammys as the choir, and that was super cool. I would have never done that if I wasn't involved in that choral singing world. And so I've found that I think the difference between what I expected and what I'm currently living is that all of those different interests all serve a purpose and are all really fulfilling and enjoyable, as opposed to my thought of there's this one
Yeah.
path you have to follow to be a successful musician.
So what do you like the best about being a professional musician? What gets you up every day?
I love the feeling in it just might sound strange, but I love just how it feels in my body to sing. It's very grounding, especially in a world of fast, quick media that's always trying to get your attention in little bites. And, as someone, just to be frank, I've suffered with anxiety a lot of my life. And so it's easy for me to fall victim to that constant media barrage. But when I sing, when I sit down to sing, when I warm up, when I go through, when I learn a new standard, when I practice for a choral performance, whatever I'm doing, like I feel so grounded in my body. And I notice that some of my voice students feel that too. Even just the act of being in touch with yourself can be so healing and very joyful. And that's honestly, I think, my favorite thing about being a vocalist, of a professional vocalist, is just that connection. And then especially singing with other people, whether it's the jazz quartet where we're improvising together, or in a choral group where we're singing in harmony with one another in layers. It's very, I feel very grounded and connected to everyone around me. And I think that is really powerful, especially amidst that uh, the barrage, if you will.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. Why do you love jazz? Why do you love this art form that you're dedicating your life to?
Uh, I love jazz because of the artistic spontaneity of it. It's very electric. I have a very vivid memory of being about 14 years old, and I'm at a summer camp, a music summer camp with all these music students. And it was still new to me at the time. I wasn't into it. Was like right when it was starting to really get into listening to jazz. And um I was at a summer camp, and there was older kids around me, and they were all hooting and hollering in the middle of the tunes, right? Someone plays a lick they like, and they're like, yeah, they're making noise. And I was kind of taken aback. I was like, what? And I turned to the older kid sitting next to me, and I was like, why are they making noise during the song? Isn't that rude? And he kind of like laughs at me a little bit. He's like, no, you got to make noise if you enjoy it. And the whole energy in this room was electric. And then there was a jazz harp player, which I had never seen before, and she was so electric and engaging. And just the energy in the room, both from the students watching and the performers with the improvising, was so electric. And then so from there, I was like addicted to that energy. And so I started buying, I went home and I ordered a Thelonious Monk record and an Oscar Peterson record, and I started devouring that music. And the just the energy and the artistry. I think I was inspired both by the level of technical mastery it takes to really perform this art form well, and then at the same time, the creative spontaneity, how they have to coincide to really make great jazz. And that balance, I think, it seemed so difficult to strike that balance to me when I was younger. But it really inspired me a lot. And so as I've continued to work on this art form and try to grow my craft, I try to keep a balance of that. But I really, when it comes time to just sing with other musicians in the moment, the that slight fear and edge of, I don't know exactly how this is going to go. We're going to figure it out together and make decisions at the moment, is so engaging and inspiring for me. Is what
So if
keeps
you
me
could,
going.
yeah, for sure. So if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one jazz show, one musician on one stage in one place, where are you going?
Oh man, what a question. I have a laundry list of that. Um, I think one of my all-time favorite live albums. Oh man, I don't know. Actually, I do know. I know. Um, there is an amazing, amazing video. I'm so glad it was captured, of Shirley Horn with her trio playing live at the Village Vanguard. She's one of my all-time favorites. She's a huge inspiration to mine. And there's actually a big nod to her on the album. I do this tune, this Michel Legrand tune with lyrics by Alan and Marilyn Bergman called One at a Time. And I actually snagged that tune from this set of Shirley Horn's. She sings it in this set. I had never heard it before. And there's this, it's an hour plus long video of Shirley Horn live at the Village Vanguard. And that whole performance took my breath away. And so I think if I could hop in a time machine, I would love to see either that specific show or any performance of hers.
So, Alex, everyone has a perception of you: family, friends, fans, students, everyone on the bandstand, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, I think I am at my core a very caring and giving person. I really want to give the listener and just anyone I interact with, whether it's a student, um, or a friend, like I love the feeling of helping a student unlock a piece of their voice they had never thought they could access, and seeing the light bulb and the smile when the thing they didn't think they could achieve starts to come out. That's like my favorite part of being a teacher. And also as a musician, I really want to give to the people that I am singing with. I want to give the listener an engaging story when I'm singing a lyric. And I care very deeply about a lot of things, sometimes to a fault, sometimes where I think just the way that I experience life can be very impactful to me. But that is what I hope that people will take from either seeing me live or listening to the album, is that I want to give a just either a pleasant experience, an emotional experience, however anybody chooses to interact with it.
So tomorrow's the big day. I Really Oughta Tell You comes out. It's going to hit the streets. If anybody wants to get a copy, I know streaming doesn't do a whole lot to feed into what goes into the process. Bandcamp. Otherwise, where do they go? Where's the best place?
Yeah, so I'm grateful to any way you want to listen. If it's streaming, that's great. If you do want to contribute more, the album is for sale on Bandcamp. And I am selling physical copies on my website. It's musicbyalexrobinson.com. You can order got one right here in the shrink wrap and all. So the physical copies are for sale on my website, but you can also go to Bandcamp to get it digitally.
Okay, I will put all of these links out. This has been wonderful. Alex, thank you. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck, and hopefully we run into you down the line. This is the first of many albums.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet.
Neon Jazz.